Hello. So I'm going to be quickly setting up a small tutorial to create an auto sheathe event. So if you draw your weapon and you don't attack, it'll sheathe your weapon. If you do attack, it will re-trigger a delay, and once you are no longer attacking for a certain amount of time, it will trigger the sheathe weapon event. And we're also going to add in there a check to make sure if you are targeting an enemy and to not sheathe your sword while you're targeting an enemy. So to get started, let's be in the Dynamic Combat System folder, open the Blueprints folder, and open the BP Combat character. In your main event graph here, you're going to want to find the Toggle Combat Events. And what this does is this fires off when you press the R key, and it checks the branch to see if you're using an ability, so if you're using magic. If not, then it goes down here, checks if you're aiming, which if you're aiming, you're obviously using the bow. And then it also checks if you're idle or not falling. If all the conditions are right, it ends up toggling your combat. And so we're going to be using this event for it. So let's just create a custom event up here. We'll name it Auto Sheathe Weapon. And we're going to create an input here, a float input, and we'll name it Delay Time. And from here we're going to get a re-triggerable delay. This is a delay that re-triggers with whatever input duration you give it. And so it won't fire off like a normal delay would. If it's ran again, it'll actually reset it and continue to wait the time. You could also just set a custom time here. If you wanted the event to always use the same time, you can just set this to 10, 20, something around there. But we're doing it this way, and I'll show you why. It just gives a little bit more detail you could put into it, I guess you could say. I'll explain it here shortly. Next thing we want to do is we want to get our equipment component. And from this, get is in combat. This just checks if the character has their sword drawn or not. If it's true, that means their sword is out. The reason why we want this here is because if you were to put your sword away on your own by pressing the R key, you don't want this event to fire off and bring your sword back out. That would be not ideal. And so if this is false, it will just do nothing, meaning that you've already put your sword away. It has no reason to run again. If it's true, then we'll go ahead and run the event and put your sword away. We're going to be adding a little bit more here, but I'm going to go ahead and set up the rest first so that we can kind of visualize it a little better and maybe understand better. So from the true on the branch, we want to connect it to this branch here that's connected to the pressed of the input action toggle combat. And if we toggle our combat, we want to make sure that we start checking the auto sheathe, or else you'll be able to toggle your combat, and it's not going to auto sheathe your weapon unless you actually attack something. And so we'll go ahead and run it here also. And since we added our delay time, we need to make sure we put a delay time, or else it's just going to try to sheathe our weapon right away, which we do not want. So for this, since this is if you toggle the combat, I'm going to actually set this one to 5. So if we toggle our sword, if we pull it out and we don't do anything with it, it's going to go back down in only 5 seconds. And on the attacks, if you're actually attacking and in combat, we'll make that take a little bit longer. So now let's go back to our main event graph and let's go to our melee attack events. And you'll notice here on the first attack input, if attack was pressed but character is not in combat, toggle it on. If you were to toggle combat this way, it doesn't actually run that code since it's using the input buffer. And so we also need to put that auto sheathe weapon here as well. And since this one is also from the toggle combat, I'm going to put this one at 5 also. And copy it and paste it. Now we need to put this at the end of all of our attack events. So if you were to use light attack, I'm going to go ahead and wait let's just say 15 seconds. You'd probably want to do a little bit longer of a time, depending on how long, it's really all just by preference. I'm just keeping the time short for now for the video, so that when we test it, we're not wasting a bunch of time just standing there staring at it. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and copy this new one, so I don't have to input the new value every time. Okay, so now after each one of our melee attacks, it will trigger this retriggerable delay with our new wait time. Now there's one more thing we actually do want to add here, because, well, actually let me test it first and make sure. Let's see, if we just stand here and don't attack, it should go down in 5 seconds. Yep. And if we pull it out and put it back away ourselves, it should not fire the event. Awesome, looks like we're good there. Now if we pull it out and we start attacking, each attack should re-trigger it, so it's not going to actually go away. It's not going to put the sword away until I stop attacking for 15 seconds, or whatever time you've set there. I'll make the guy pace around waiting. There we go. And now something that I think may be an issue that we can easily fix if it is. Okay, so if we pull our bow out, I believe, yeah, see, it puts our bow away, and we don't want it to do that. So what we can do here to make sure that doesn't happen is get the is combat type pure. Wait, maybe, let's try the is combat type. There we go. This is one we actually want. And we're going to check if melee is true. We only want that to go off if we are in melee. Now, even though we drew our sword first, the check isn't, it's still not going to fire off because it checks it once the delay is done. And so now we're good. Our bow is not disarming itself any longer. So I did just realize one more thing. I'm glad I tested that out. It's still not going to run even though we just attacked. But if we were to switch back to our melee weapon, it's not gonna, it's no longer, it no longer has that event checking if we're gonna need to sheathe our weapon or not. That's because we use the switch combat type to switch back to our melee weapon. And so there's one more place we're actually going to have to add this. And there could possibly be one or two other ways to switch weapons that we may want to account for. If I don't get them all, it's really simple. If you find something you need to add it to, just add that event there. And now it's going to always check if it's melee, so it doesn't matter if it's something like the switch weapon where it works with all the different weapon types. It's still only going to run the event if the weapon we switched to was melee. We're just going to want to throw that event right here at the end of the two switch main hand type up. So if we switch to a melee weapon, it will still check if we should auto sheath. There we go. Now another problem that we can have here that we're going to fix also is, well, it's not a problem, but it's something that you can add if you'd like to. If we're targeting an enemy, they say we're strafing around them, and there might be a time when you're strafing around them for 30 seconds and you're not actually attacking. You don't want your weapon to be put away because, obviously you're probably engaging in combat if you have an enemy targeted. So we're going to make it so that the event does not run if we have an enemy targeted. And if there is an enemy targeted, or yeah, if there is an enemy targeted and it doesn't run the Sheathe event, it's actually going to check again until we don't have an enemy targeted anymore. So let's get our dynamic targeting component. And from this, you can get selected actor and just right click it and convert to validated get. So that's going to get the selected actor from the dynamic targeting component. If it's valid, that means there is an actor selected. If it's not valid, that means you do not have a selected target. So if it's valid, we want to make sure that we run this event again. And you could put it at the same time so that when your enemy becomes not targeted anymore, it would wait the same time as, it could be either the same one you put here or on the end of the attacks. It doesn't really matter. You can even put it for 1 second, so the second you stop targeting it would realize and put your weapon away, but you probably don't want that just in case you target another enemy 2 seconds later. So we'll just put it at 5 just for now, but there may be a better value for that. I'm not real worried about that right now. It's really easy to change the values. So now if we draw our weapon, we notice that if I don't attack, just 5 seconds later it puts it away. But if I were to target an enemy, it should no longer put the weapon away until I'm done targeting. So no matter if I attack or run that event as many times as we want to, it's not ever going to put our weapon away as long as we have a selected actor with the dynamic targeting. And if I on-target them, 5 seconds later, we should put our weapon down. So I think I covered just about everything we need for that. I don't think there's any other events that should allow that to be affected. Let's check. If we switch to another melee weapon, it should be fine. It should still run. Yeah, it does. We'll kill this guy just to check if it's working. Alright. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. And that's everything we got for this video. So have a nice day. Goodbye.